before the war, the most mobile, intellectually and mentally mobile in the Nigerian army, they were the Igbo.
Yeah, welcome on Nabo TV Live. My name is Chidi Peters. With me in the studio this afternoon is Gray Almona. Gray Almona, you're very much welcome to Nabo TV Live.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, very wonderful one. This afternoon, we're going to take on history in reflex, and of course, Dim Ojukwu in reflect. Of course, beginning with his father. Yeah, you sound so conversant with the trend or the trajectory that Louis Ojukwu set in Nigeria, yes, and also by extension his son. With younger generation, would like to know more about that.
I was starting with Sir Louis.
Sir Louis.
Okay, yes. Sir Louis Ojukwu was one of the richest men, you know, in the entire African continent. When we use the phrase "one of," we're trying to be modest or conservative. Actually, was the richest. You know, because when Nigeria became independent in 1960, the rest of the feudal African society, you know, it became green with envy. You know, but they actually knew that Nigeria had that huge potential. So Sir Louis Ojukwu started business, you know, in the mid-40s. He was a very close friend of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. So that when Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe returned from the US, you know, he formed that kind of chummy relationship with Sir Louis. And it was just a coincidence. Sir Louis had you know, kind of a beef with a favorite son and favorite child rather. Ojukwu was Dim Ojukwu, sorry, was the eldest, and they had you know like the kind of relationship between Fela Ransom Kuti. I don't use Anikolapo, just forgive me for that, because Fela became a different person when he started answering Anikolapo, you know. So Fela and the mom, they had this kind of love-hate relationship because of the law. So Sir Louis and young Chukwuemeka Odumegwu, just a fresh MA Ozone product from Oxford University, he wanted to actually join the army, and one thing led to another. It was Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe that reconciled, you know, the feud. But he was very fond of Dim Ojukwu. Sir Louis built his wealth on haulage business. You know, when we talk about contemporary Dangote spectrum, Dangote scenario, Ekede Dilichukwu, Izuchukwu, we forget that all were preceded by the Sir Louis factor, a foremost transport investor, you know, in the colonial and post-colonial economy. He created a lot of wealth, you know, for the incoming petty bourgeoisie. And you will be surprised, but more than 2/3 of Lagos mainland and island, you know, have property bequeathed to Sir Louis. So that at a point, you know, after the avoidable civil war of 1967 to 1970, when Dim Ojukwu had to return to Nigeria, the historian, former military governor of you know, Eastern Province, and they call him Biafran warlord, but he told us, I was not a warlord, though. I was talking about justice. We'll come to that presently, because there's no way we'll talk about Dim Ojukwu without, you know, settling the rift about what led to the avoidable war. So when he found himself administering such an arsenal of property, at the point he nearly lost count. The complex occupied by Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, you know, private property of Sir Louis Ojukwu. So many others, Leventis building around Akpakpa, you know, stretching to Akpongbon area, they even going behind Herbert Macaulay, driving towards Onike, then way back to Lagos Island, Onikom. So you see, Chidi, the Nigerian elite, they were intimidated by the wealth, by the vast wealth of Sir Louis Ojukwu. And the funny thing, the man had no business with politics. When Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was coming close, he became suspicious. I'm not interested in NCNC made overtures to bring him into politics now. Sardauna was even, you know, amazed at his humility, because a very humble man, you know, but he had that charisma. He married a woman from Ndokwa East, and that is Dim Ojukwu's mother. People don't know that Ojukwu Dim Ikemba Newi, his mother from Abo Kingdom in Ndokwa East. Yes. So the story of Sir Louis, I just hope I will have the time. I would like to garner all the material, then put it in print. You know, the way Obasanjo was impelled by the urge to let the world know who Chukwuma Kaduna Nzogo was. That's why he wrote that book, Nzogo, even though the northern elite became nervous and neurotic after that. So, can we shift the focus now to Dimo?
Focus now on Dimo. Yeah,
yes.
this one.
Yes, so it's a continuation.
How come the master's degree holder from Oxford University
Yes.
suddenly gets
Which was a rarity then.
As a sergeant or as a corporal in Nigerian army? How come?
Yes, private. He enlisted.
Private.
When he came back from England, you know, before he went to England, he was the only student at King's College, you know, Ikoyi, who was driving a, sports car. That was a Porsche, which was rare, because Sir Louis's wealth was denominated in terms of billions of pounds. He was a billionaire in pounds. Sir Louis Ojukwu. So sending his child to England was like maybe buying a piece of cake. So Ojukwu attended King's College, made very good result, because from day one, Dimo Ojukwu talked like an Englishman. So that when the Nigeria Biafra fratricidal war did come later, his address that fateful day when Biafran soldiers were retreating to the east for tactical reasons, his address, we cannot forget, he said, God guard our houses, we shall vanquish. So Dim came there and he read history, and very few historians are not revolutionary. Otherwise, the discipline of history, right from the spectacle of Professor Kenneth Onwokadike, the first African VC, who was Vice Chancellor of University of Ibadan. He had to return home when the genocide theory spread by the northern elite gained momentum, and Dim said all Igbo returned to the east, not because he was a tribalist. He saw all the injustice. So when he came, he was interested in the Nigerian army. And when he confided in Sir Louis said in Igbo that don't ever mention that again. and Dim was never the person, Chidi, that he would stop from his goal. Said okay, he held to his chest. So he now sought Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe's intervention, because Zik returned from the US and finding an Igbo man with such stupendous wealth, tried to get close to him. So, well, one thing led to another, he still didn't agree. So Dimo Ojukwu hid and slid into the army when the advertisement for recruitment. So he was recruited as a private. Because in the army is so elitist. When you go through the officer corps, you are commissioned. But when you go through what they call Korofo, you are recruited. But they didn't know that they had just recruited a historian of rare aptitude. And there was an incident. The warrant officer one, he was administering something like a company lesson. And the man from Kontagora could not pronounce, he said safety catch was a Saputu catch. And the whole, because army is obey before command. Don't ever question your superior. But Dim had other ideas. So he raised his hand. He said, sir, actually, that's what he said, safety catch. So he started raining, insults on Dim that if actually, things were normal, that Ojukwu would have been, commissioned, it would have been sent to the guard room, or what the army call company commander's orders. That is the defaulters parade. But the officer watching from afar also had other ideas. He would like to see the person. Say, what actually is your background? So Dim Chukwemeka said actually he was a master's degree holder in history. That was all. A master's degree holder in history. The Nigerian army was known as Queen's Own Nigerian Regiment, because the history of Nigerian army was first West African Frontier Force, WAF, then Queen's Own Nigerian Regiment. Then in 1900, when the colonial office finally, annexed Nigeria as a territory, it now became Nigerian army, when Zogo was the first commander of NNPC in 1961. So that was how Ojukwu found himself in the army. Immediately he was commissioned in the army, he was made Quartermaster General of the Nigerian Army. The army is a rare institution. That's the only unique institution where you have records untainted, whether you are prejudiced or not. If you go to army headquarters now in Abuja, Ojukwu's picture will be there as the first QMG, Quartermaster General. Today in Bonny Camp, Quartermaster General's office is also sequestered as QMove. We call it QMove. So that eventually paved the way as he joined the army, then before the coup of 1966. And so that brings us to that issue. The coup of 1966 was to also purge the Nigerian political spectrum of corruption. Chukwuma Kaduna Nzogu, reading that famous unforgettable speech in the morning of January 15, 1966, which was a Saturday, as he told his father, who was working at ECN, said, your son's name is on the pages of newspapers. He didn't know that Nzogu had taken part in the coup. Nzogu said, we are against the 10%ers. Is 10% not with us today? It is still tomorrow, and even worse now. We are against all the corrupt people. That was all. But it happened that before the war, the most mobile, intellectually and mentally mobile in the Nigerian army, they were the Igbo. You had Udeaja, Emelifonwu, Owakwe, Ojukwu, Nzogo from this way, Nzefili, Okwechime, Mwajei, Ogunewe. Then you also had Njoku, Anuforo, Onwatwegu, Bulie, Chukwuka, Okafor. The first head of Brigade of Gas in the Nigerian Army was Major Donatus Okafor, who handled the Ibadan operation, where he dared to take Chief Akintola together with Major Onwatwegu. The first head of military intelligence in the Nigerian Army was Chukwuma Nzogo. The first head of S&T in the Nigerian Army was a man from Ndokwa, is Colonel Trinidad, then seconded by Colonel Nwaje from Igbuzo. The first head of army engineers was Colonel Okwechime, when Obasanjo saw him in Sabaso, Namagao. So you understand Igbo domination. So that they became envious. Now let us fast forward the tape. If the Nigerian post-colonial elite were pathologically scared of the Igbo, what about so were they not scared in 1970? Immediately after the war, the Igbo burst back on the scene. You had a rush of, cultural movements. Enugu Rangers, from the ruins of the war, became the first Nigerian team to qualify for the African Champions Clubs Cup in 1971. So this thing about the Igbo coup is one thing that we have to sweep that debt from the garbage dump of history. There was never an attempt to ethnicize the coup. Now, Unu Agbe was the head of Amory. When Onwatwegu, Ifajuna, when they said, let's have the kid because we want to deal with these people, and he was dilly-dallying, he was shot dead. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was penciled down for elimination by Nzogo and Ifajuna. They are Igbo. There was nothing like Igbo coup. So, in retaliating out of proportion with the motives of the January 15 revolutionaries, there was large-scale genocidal reaction on July 29, 1966, where Major General Johnson Thomas Umunakwe Aguiyi Ironsi was murdered in cold blood, together with his host, Colonel Adekunle Fajuyi. So Ojukwu now said, okay, this is the issue. Gowon cannot be head of state because Gowon is my junior. Gowon is a lieutenant colonel. I am a superior lieutenant colonel. And I have masters in history, bachelors in history, first class honors, Oxford University. So Gowon cannot be my senior. So one rift left another. Ojukwu now said, okay, because of the random killings against Igbo in the north, Igbo women were slaughtered. Pregnant women, they were thrown into River Benue. Those returning to the east. So let all Igbo return to the east so that we have our peace. And then, when the matter now reverted to Ghana to be settled, courtesy of General Ankara, Aburi, Ojukwu now brought a proposal. So, okay, to avoid this kind of stalemate, institutional stalemate, let us restructure. The father of restructuring Nigerian political philosophy is Dim Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, Ezigbo Gburugburu, no other person. When we talk about resource control and try to sentimentalize it, they forget history. Ojukwu brought resource control matters to the forefront. He said, let the regions have, 70% and the center 30%. As a way of solving the rift. Okay, all the parties to the peace talks. Lieutenant Colonel David Ejo, blessed memory, representing Midwest. Lieutenant Colonel Hassan Usman Katsina, representing Northern Region, also blessed memory. Colonel Adebayo, who replaced Fajuyi after the dastardly coup of July 29, 1966, Western Region. And then, last but not least, Ojukwu himself for Eastern Region. They all agreed. So, okay, that was going to be. When they returned to Lagos, look at the funny thing. Ben Bulie said the Igbo often disappoint and betray the Igbo. Who betrayed the Ojukwu president? It was an Asaba man, Sir Philip Asiodo, together with one other Shekiri man, Aida, and one other man from Benue. They told Gowon, say, what are you naive? Do you know the implication of this instrument? It will make us very weak. So go on now, call Ojukwu, rather in a ceremonious manner. Say, all that we discussed, we have to change it. Ojukwu said, no way. No way. So there was a Ghanaian production by the Ramblers where they said Amankwe. So people now said it was Ojukwu that said, they now said Ojukwu Amankwe. He said that was not my plan for Aburi. Aburi was about justice. So one thing led to another, and instead of Nigeria to settle the injustice, we went on shooting war.
That is exactly history in retrospect. I want to thank you very much for that time to be with Ojukwu TV live. My name is Chidi Peters. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and of course, press that notification button for updates on this wonderful episode. Bye bye.